I think it is important to note that the influence of the world wars really did impact the world, especially in reference to mental health and being able to focus on people's behaviors and their aggressions associated with things and being angry, not just in the war, but outside from the war. But I really think that it influenced the great deal of being able to understand different mental illnesses in that time period. During the zeitgeist of 1961, he began to do experiments. And shortly after World War I, in which criminal Adolf Eichmann had begun, in his defense, he thought he was fine because he was just following these orders. And he was just doing it because he thought it was okay because someone was telling him to do it. But he just viewed the situation as just following the instructions and being able to kill many of the Jews that we know about today. This really had an impact on him in his book that was published in 1974, Obedience to Authority. So this was a book published by Milgram, who posed the question of, could it be that Eichmann and his million accomplices in the Holocaust were just following orders? Could we all be accomplices? So this question really sparked in the community, not only because we had gone throughout the tragedy, but trying to understand people like Eichmann and understanding why his behaviors and aggressions, such as that with our Albert Bandera and his bubble doll experiment, and trying to understand different aggressions. So I think this was an influential event to be able to understand this as well. So he really did have a backlash with this. Milgram, it seemed that the majority of the public just seemed to see the experiment in which Milgram contracted was very unethical on people and could not be okay with letting a person get away with murder because they were told to do so. So in doing so, they were able to focus on the behaviors and the aggression of the people and trying to better self-actualize and understand what was going on. So I really think that goes back to Stanley or the impact of Stanley. So this truly was able to give people a spark, and the people in which paying close attention to people in which they helped understand the different illnesses and diagnoses. So they really thought that Stanley Milgram was someone that should not very much be in the psychology world because they really thought he was unethical. So the people really began to ponder on whether they should support a different psychologist and trying to understand the different behaviors and mechanisms associated with them, because they understood that, okay, Milgram is not ethical and he's not going the right way. The impact of Stanley Milgram's work was that being able to understand that the authority figure may stem from the construction of the situation or connect of the authority, and thus being able to influence people to search for mental mechanisms connected with the brain and decisions as such. So I think this goes back to other psychologists as well in trying to understand the different mechanisms of the brain and trying to just understand why we act out the ways we do and the different aggressions that are associated with that. And I feel like it ties back to being able to be influenced with the Mental Health Act and trying to understand that mental illness people are not different from the next. And if someone does have a mental disorder, they need to be looked at and need to understand the diagnoses, which give us in the DSM-5 or the DSM, and being able to understand the different diagnoses and the criteria.